It gives me great pleasure at the opening of your 28th annual conference to send you a message of solidarity and good wishes from the officers and members of ASMS. For those of you unfamiliar with ASMS, we are the only trade union in Australia that is run by doctors and consists only of doctors. ASMS has some 12,000 members around Australia, and we cover all classification of salaried medical practitioner from intern right through to Director of Medical Services. ASMS and the ASMS have a long and happy tradition of mutual support and collaboration. In a personal capacity, I've always valued the sharing of information and ideas at our organisation's twice yearly industrial coordination meetings. I have to say that my experience of attending these meetings for some 10 years is that as the ASMS and the RDA, who also attend, are often somewhat ahead of us in Australia, whether it be in policy work, campaigns, or innovative, some would say somewhat aspirational claims for your Mecca. And of course, the support that we received from the ASMS during the fairly recent contracts dispute with senior doctors in Queensland was very much appreciated by my organisation, particularly the advisories that were issued by the ASMS warning your members not to come to Queensland and work there during the dispute. I thought I'd say a few things about some of the issues that we're grappling with in Australia at the moment. Privatisation of public services, of course, is a perennial issue, I think, for both our countries. It can take different forms, of course, from the privatisation of particular services such as pathology and radiology, through to the more drastic impact of a wholesale privatisation of a public hospital. There are instances of this around Australia, of course, and right now in New South Wales, where I'm based, the Liberal state government has decided to privatise 5 regional hospitals. In most cases, these hospitals are long overdue for upgrading and refurbishment, and the government is arguing that the only way that they can afford to do these works is by an injection of funding from the private sector. But the sting in the tail is that once these new hospitals are built, they will be run by a private operator. Well, unsurprisingly, the public isn't buying this. Blind Freddie can see that the privatisation of public services nowadays is electorally unpopular. A major campaign is underway in New South Wales against this government decision, and I'm pleased to report that ASMS is right amongst it. We've had members address rallies decrying this decision and the effect that it will have on their patients. We've had some great media during the campaign, and it's really lifted ASMS's profile both publicly and amongst the profession. And I just wanted to show you some of the merchandise that we've produced for the campaign. The risk of looking like hostess from a game show, but it's our T-shirt, which our members have been wearing during the campaign. We also have lanyards, which are very popular amongst the members, and pens, of course. So I truly believe that this sort of campaigning focus represents the way ahead for our union. One of the challenges facing all unions in Australia is the increasing regulatory oversight of our activities. The Liberals, when they came to office federally, instituted a Royal Commission into trade unions. This uncovered corruption and serious misuse of members' money in a handful of unions. And whilst what happened in those unions was deplorable, the government has used this as an excuse to clamp down further on all unions and what we do. ASMS has 14 different entities registered in the various state jurisdictions and federally. Each of these is a reporting unit under either state or federal legislation, and is required to adhere to a very prescriptive reporting and auditing regime set down by either a state or federal regulator. Now, my job as Federal Executive Officer was created some 18 months ago, in large part as a compliance role. And you'll find a counterpart for me nowadays in, I'd say, just about all Australian trade unions. My job is, in large part, to crack the whip on those 14 reporting units and make sure that we stay out of trouble with the regulators. The government has introduced new legislation that will establish a new regulatory authority with increased powers similar to those under the Corporations Power in Australia. Unions will be subjected to an even more rigorous reporting regime with potentially heavy fines for non-compliance. Australian unions are heavily lobbying the crossbenchers in the Senate around some of the more draconian aspects of the bill, and we're hopeful, I won't say confident at this stage, that some of the worst aspects can be improved or removed altogether. Well, I know there's a busy program ahead, so I'll conclude by wishing you all a very productive and inspiring conference. Thank you.